Welcome to the Conquering Chronic Illness Show. I'm your host, Daphne Wiswell, the Chronic Illness Coach. And each week, I'm going to be bringing you stories, strategies, and sparks of hope that I pray will encourage you on your journey through life as a conqueror. If illness, mindsets, or other obstacles have held you back from living the life you desire, and you've been looking for real hope, real strategy, and real connection, then you've come to the right place. I'm so glad you're here. Well, hey there, and welcome back to the show where today I am speaking to either the woman who is dealing with chronic or autoimmune illness herself, or the woman who loves and possibly cares for someone who is dealing with a chronic or autoimmune illness. Because what we're talking about today is 5 signs that it's time for you to take a break. And here's what I know from over 20 years of dealing with chronic and autoimmune illness in myself and also in my kids. And it's that you can definitely experience major burnout and deal with compassion fatigue. And there are some clear signs. I actually surveyed women on my social media channels, friends of mine, people that I've been connected to for a long time, just to ask them, like, what are some of your signs? And I was not surprised in the least that a lot of their signs matched up with my signs. We all are designed uniquely, but we all have similar signals that say, like, hey, it's time for your brain. It's time for your body. It's time for you need a break. You need to take some time for you. You need to take some time to not have to be making decisions, to not have to be doing research, to not have to be wondering what's coming around the corner, what's next, when is this going to end? You've got to take a break. And so we'll talk about taking a break at the end, but first I just want to dive into the 5 signs that it's time for you to take a break. And one of them for me and for many other women who responded to this survey that I did was that I get extra sensitive and super emotional, even about things that probably shouldn't elicit any kind of an extreme emotional response. And I think that a reason that happens is because you just get so tired. If you're really tired and you have not been taking time to just do basic self-care things, then you're going to be extra sensitive and extra emotional. And what happens when, even if it's you taking care of yourself, I remember this would happen to me when I was dealing with rheumatoid arthritis, anxiety, depression, Hashimoto's was flaring. I had panic attacks, all kinds of things were happening in my own body, right? I was really just trying to take care of myself. I mean, I had 3 small children at the time, but just focusing on my own health and my own wellness and my own goals in that area was incredibly overwhelming. And so during that period, I would get extra emotional about really small things. My poor baby sister remembers. Oh my gosh, I feel so bad. But there was one time that she came over. She was, we're 10 years apart. So she was maybe 13 at this time. And she came over to just play with my kids and spend time with us. And I was in this season where I was feeling extra sensitive and emotional. And sometimes I'd have these anger outbursts and just, you never knew what was going to happen around me. And I'm so grateful for the people in my life who have stuck with me through all of that. But she came over and I think she spilled a carton of ice cream. Like there had been ice cream sitting out on the counter because, you want it to soften. And she took it out and she was letting it soften, and it had been on the counter for a little bit. And I think she went to put it back up and it fell on the carpet or the tile. I don't remember, whatever the flooring was. And the ice cream went everywhere and I lost it. And she bore the brunt. I've apologized and I think she's forgiven me, but she bore the brunt of my emotional outburst that day. And seeing her reaction to my reaction made me so aware, like, wow, I need to get a handle on this. I need to take care of myself so that I'm not having these emotional outbursts, that I'm not, at the smallest things. It was ice cream. Just clean it up. It's not a big deal on a normal day with a normal functioning body and a normal functioning brain. But when you have signals firing in your body all of the time because you're sick or you're taking care of someone who's sick, then things just don't function the way that they normally would. And so that's just one sign that it's time for you to take a break. You're extra sensitive. You're super emotional. You have these unrealistic, exaggerated outbursts of anger. Sign number one. Okay, another sign is that you're easily overwhelmed or you become anxious by routine tasks or decisions. So, something as simple as it's time to do the laundry again, or there are dirty dishes in the sink, or you have to make a decision about whether or not you're going to attend a certain function, maybe a family or a social event. Things like that can just make you feel so anxious, so overwhelmed. And it's because you might just have this overload of decisions that you've been making in your own care or in the care of the person that you love. Maybe you've been making lots of decisions about medications or the right physicians to see, or whether or not you're going to start a new regimen of supplements, or whether or not you're going to start an elimination diet, or whether or not you're going to, so many decisions come into play when you're dealing with a chronic or autoimmune illness and having to make those decisions that are really important and really big. And you're just, maybe your mind is sometimes like, well, if I do this, then what's going to happen? If I don't do this, then what's going to happen? And having all of that in the background of your brain, and then having these little decisions come at you like, should we put mustard on this? You can just freak out because you've got all this stuff happening in the background. And so then when this little small task or this little small decision comes along, you don't want to think about it. You don't want anyone to ask you. It's too overwhelming. It causes you too much anxiety. So that's just another sign that it's time for you to take a break. The third sign is that you get extra snappy with the people that you usually love caring for. So if you're caring for someone who's dealing with a chronic or autoimmune illness, and normally you're so just grateful that they're in your life, you're grateful that modern technology or medicine has made it possible for them to still be with you. And, most of the time you're full of joy and gratitude, but then every once in a while, here comes this little sneaky, like you're feeling angry, you're feeling bitter, you're feeling resentful, and you get snappy with them. It's a sign that it's time for you to take a little break. Okay, 4 is, and this is my favorite because it seems to happen to me the most. It's not my favorite, but I mean, it's the most common for me, and it's embarrassing to admit, but it's the actual truth. I started having thoughts or daydreaming about what it would be like to just run away from all of the responsibilities, from all of the decisions, from all the medications and the doctor appointments and the lab visits and the sitting for the IV infusions and everything. Like, I just start daydreaming about what it would be like to not have to do those things, to not have to be the one to take care of those things. And I recognize now, after years of this happening, that I mean, obviously I haven't run away. I'm still here. My kids are still here. But I recognize that is just my brain saying, like, it's time for you to take a breather. It's time for you to ask for some help. It's time for you to, maybe give yourself extra time to make some decisions. And here's the thing too, is that I know, for when I say like it's time for you to take a break, some people might be thinking like I did for a really long time. Well, that sounds great. I'd love to take a break. How in the world am I supposed to do that? And we're going to talk about that because I think a lot of times there are things that get in the way of us taking a break that really don't need to get in the way. Part of that is our mindset. Part of it is things that we're believing that just aren't true. And so I'm going to talk about that in just a minute. Okay, another sign that it's time for you to take a break is that you want to isolate yourself from everyone and everything, which kind of goes along with, wanting to run away or whatever. But this is a little bit different. This is like just not wanting to be around people and not wanting to have conversations that usually lift you up. And like when I was really battling depression and anxiety, my phone would ring. I would see that it was my mom or my sister or my best friend or whoever it might be. And I just wouldn't answer the phone because I didn't want to be encouraged. I didn't want to be reminded that it was time to take my medicine. I didn't want to be asked if I had made my next appointment with my therapist. I wanted to isolate myself from everyone who thought they knew what the solutions to my problems were, because all it did was aggravate me and make me feel ashamed that I was even dealing with all of this stuff when none of it was really my fault, right? And so, wanting to isolate myself from everyone and everything was another sign. And then finally, there are some physical signs in your body, ways that your body will let you know, like, hey, something's not right and you need to pay attention to this. Those could be lack of energy, dealing with sleep problems, headaches, not feeling hungry. I think sometimes it sounds kind of strange, but I talk to a lot of women who are like, well, I just didn't eat because I forgot to, or I ate this, and this, and they're eating more things than they want to. So differences in your appetite or the foods that you're craving, that can be a physical sign that something isn't right, that it's time for you to take a break. Also, another thing is if you start neglecting your own physical and emotional needs, like if you're like, oh, I honestly don't have time to exercise. I really don't want, think about the things that are just basic everyday stuff. I really don't have time to exercise. I don't have time to take a walk. I don't have time to, take a long bath or go get a facial or whatever it might be that it is something, even something as simple as like, I don't have time to go get my own self checked out. Like, I don't have time to go get my labs done. I don't have time to go, there was a long period of time when I was dealing stuff with my kids where my sister was really great about asking me, like, have you had your thyroid checked again? There are things that will flare up from time to time, right? And, I would go 6 months, a year without going to my own doctor appointments or getting my own stuff checked because I was so burnt out on going and sitting in doctor's offices and having lab visits and all that stuff. And I was doing it so often for my kids that I just would neglect doing it for myself, which was actually doing my kids a disservice, right? A lot of times people think that if you're taking care of yourself and taking time away from the people that you need to be taking care of, that you're being selfish, but actually it's the opposite that's true. Because if I'm not taking care of myself, if I'm not making sure that my own body is functioning well, that my own mind is functioning well, then I'm not going to be as well equipped to take care of the people who need me. And so it's actually a gift to the people that I love to make sure that I'm taking care of myself, to make sure that I'm taking a break when I'm experiencing burnout or fatigue. That way I can come back and be the best wife, the best mom, the best friend, the best daughter, whatever. And it's a gift to them when I take care of me. Okay, so how do you take a break when, let's say first you're the one that's sick, right? You're the one dealing with a mental or physical condition. One way that you can take a break is to ask someone else to help you make decisions. So you can present whatever the situation might be. You've gotten a diagnosis, you have to decide between medications, you've got to make appointments to get things checked out. You have this variety of supplements that you could begin. There's so many different, a different food plan, right? So asking other people in your life who really care about you to look at those things with you and to help you weigh out the options can make it feel less heavy for you because you're not doing it alone. And doing something in a community, even if it's a small community, it might be your spouse or your best friend or your mom or your daughter or whoever it might be. Just having one other person at least look at stuff and kind of help you weigh the pros and cons and make that decision with you can make it feel like less of a burden and can make it feel a lot less frightening. And so that's not technically taking a break, I guess, because you're still having to make decisions, but it's taking a break from being the one who does it all on your own. And that can make things feel so much lighter. Another thing, and this was one that was really hard for me to learn, is to ask for help. So when I was in the midst of the depression, the panic attacks, rheumatoid arthritis, all that stuff came all kind of at the same time. I would ask my mother-in-law or my mom if they would just take the kids for a couple of hours on a Saturday. And I would say, like, maybe I was going to go get groceries, but I just wanted to do it without three little kids. Like, I always had to get two baskets, little kids in one basket, groceries in the other basket. So it was a really stressful and physically demanding outing when I was dealing with pain already. And so I'd ask them to, take the kids for a couple of hours on Saturday so that I could do some grocery shopping. Not technically a break, but I have seen the memes on social media that women are saying like, oh, going to Target is my vacation. It really felt like it at that time in my life. So it's not a total break, but it's a break from your everyday normal taxing routine. And another thing I would do is I would ask them to take the kids and I would just take a nap or read a book or do something that just made me feel like I could relax for a little bit. Like I didn't have to think about my treatment plans, what the kids needed, or whatever else was going on with me. I could just kind of turn to relaxation, maybe watch a funny movie with my husband. There were so many different ways that you can take a break without it being a long, extended one. And it's as simple as asking the people around you who love you to give you a helping hand. And if you're thinking like, I don't have anyone like that, I don't know anyone like that, then I'm praying for you right now and just believing that God is going to start sending people across your path who are the kind of people that want to wrap their arms around you and support you on this journey called life. One of my really good friends who was just instrumental in making sure I got through the season where I was dealing with anxiety and depression. I met her through my husband because he worked with her husband. And she reached out after hearing about the birth of my son and some different things that I was going through because my husband went to work and obviously he was concerned about me. So he was letting some guys know. And she reached out. And to this day, we're still friends. This was almost 20 years ago. To this day, we're still friends. But she was the one who was like, I'll watch your kids while you go to therapy. I'm going to call you every day and make sure you take your medicine. Have you taken a shower today? These were seasons when I was really having a hard time just doing basic things for myself. And she was a new person that God just, brought into my life and spoke such light over me and truth over me and just cared for me so deeply. And so I'm believing that God has people just like that for you, and he's going to send them. Okay, another way to take a break, and this is if you're taking care of someone else, right? Because I've talked about me and how to take care of myself with little breaks and asking for help. But if you have someone in your care, a spouse, a child, a parent, whoever, that needs ongoing specialized something, right? Like I have a son with type 1 diabetes, I have a daughter with 2 different forms of arthritis, I have a son with sensory processing disorder. So there were things that required like special knowledge. Okay. I couldn't just call anyone and be like, can you babysit my kids? No, you had to go through like a half-day training with a diabetes educator to understand how to help my son with his condition because he was 2 when he was diagnosed. And so it wasn't like he could handle it himself. There were injections, there were finger pricks, there was counting carbs at every meal or snack, things that had to be done at night while he was sleeping. So it was a big endeavor. It wasn't like, oh, we're going to go to Cancun with our friends. Like, no, we never did that. Now looking back, I'm like, I have so many tools that I can share with so many people so they don't miss out on those things. I just didn't know them at that time. And so for you to take a break from that kind of care, from that kind of specialized, whatever it is that you might need to do, you have to ask for help. And if you're like, well, they're not going to know what to do, or I don't know how to train them, talk to your insurance, talk to your physician, see if there's respite care where you are or on your plan. I know there are some conditions where insurance will pay for a respite. I think it's called this, a respite care nurse to come and stay. And so it's someone who is specially and highly qualified and trained to stay with the person that you're normally caring for so that you can take a night off, a weekend off, whatever it might be. And it's like I said, it's part of that being a gift to the person that you love, because if you can go and get some rest and have some laughs and just enjoy things that you're not able to enjoy on an everyday basis because of the demands of caregiving, then you're giving that person that you normally take care of a gift by coming back invigorated, refreshed, just filled up with joy and more hope and peace about your future. It's just so important for you to take care of your own physical, emotional, and spiritual needs when you have the ongoing task of taking care of someone who needs 24/7 care. So for us, that looked like my sister was trained, my mom was trained, my mother-in-law was trained. They all came to a special training at the hospital where my son was diagnosed so that they could understand what they needed to do to make sure that he stayed alive when he was in their care. There wasn't as much that went into things with my daughter, but she did have some food sensitivities. And so we had like a little sheet and it was like, she can't have this, she can't have that, like make sure when you're feeding her, you're reading labels and looking for this kind of stuff, because we wanted to make sure that she wasn't exposed to those things. And then also as my son got older and we wanted him to be able to do things while we, went on a date night or a date weekend or whatever it might be. There were friends. They wanted to have sleepovers. There are all different kinds of things, right? And this was really hard to do, but this was about a decade into my journey of being a caregiver. And I realized just how important it was for myself and for my marriage for us to make sure that there were people around us, a community of support who knew what our kids needed and how to handle it. Not just so that we could go and take a break, but God forbid anything ever happened to us. Like we just, it's important to empower other people with the knowledge that is needed to take care of your loved one. And so we had a couple of friends that we asked if they would be willing to do some training, and they were. And so that training was paid for by our insurance company. And the training occurred at our doctor's office with a specialized nurse who was certified in that training. And these friends came and sat for half a day and listened and asked questions, interacted and practiced things. And it just, I remember crying that day thinking like, oh God, you are so good to us to send these people who not only, love us and are such good friends to us, but are willing to go this extra step. Like, what does it say in Ephesians 3:20? More than you can ask or imagine. These friends were more than we could ask or imagine, because we didn't dare dream that people outside of our family could ever love our kids the way that these friends did. And they loved them so well and took such amazing care of them. And so anytime my husband and I went on a date night or a weekend away or whatever it was, we knew that we could count on these people to make sure that our kids were safe and well taken care of. And so look for people in your circle who are willing to go that extra mile and ask them. What is the Bible says that you have not, or something like, you do not have because you do not ask. I don't know what the verse is, but you've got to ask people, hey, would you be willing? Would you be willing to learn this? Would you be willing to practice that? Could we try a half hour? Could we try an hour? Like, just see. You're not going to know until you ask. And another thing that I really had to break through was this idea that I was the only one who could do it right. I mean, how prideful is that? That is so prideful to think like, I'm the only one who's going to get this right. I'm the only one who can handle this. I'm the only one who can make sure that they're safe. Like, that's pride rearing its ugly head. And it's keeping you stuck in a place where, well, maybe not you, but it was me. It was keeping me stuck in a place where I was exhausted, overwhelmed, burnt out, having these angry outbursts, easily sensitive and emotional and panic attacks, being snappy with people, having all these thoughts. I mean, I had elaborate plans in my mind about how I was going to run away, where I was going to go, what I was going to be free from when I got there. Like, what a waste of my thought life and my time, I could have used that time strategizing with the people who loved us and giving them the tools that they needed to be able to care for our kids. And you can do that. You can do that. You might need to overcome some beliefs about what the other people in your circle are capable of. You might need to overcome some beliefs about you thinking you're the only one that can do it, or you thinking that you're the only one who will do it. I think a lot of times we, don't take a break because we're like, well, this is really hard. This is really overwhelming. This is really scary. This is really, fill in the blank. Nobody else is going to do this. I do this because it's my kid, my parent, my spouse, whatever. And I love them. No one else will do this. How do you know? Who have you asked? And so that's my challenge for you today is if you've experienced any of these signs that it's time for you to take a break, then I want to encourage you to look around and see who in your life, who is always reaching out to ask how you're doing or how the person you're taking care of is doing and how, what do you need? How can I help you? Is there anyone in your life who's ever doing that? And you're like, oh, we're fine. Oh, no, we've got it. Oh, no, we're good. How about next time they ask, you say, you know what? Actually, would you be willing to learn? Fill in the blank. Could you come over so I could teach you? Fill in the blank. hey, do you think you'd be open to watching whoever for whatever amount of time so that we could go to dinner, catch a movie, take a nap, buy groceries, whatever it might be? I just want to encourage you, and I can't wait to hear from you about it. And now I'm going to go practice what I preach because my husband is currently packing up our little camper and we are going to the beach for 3.5 days. And so I'm going to take a little break and come back refreshed and energized and full of joy and hope for my future. And I'm praying and believing that you are going to find ways and people that are going to make it possible for you to do that too. Bless you, friends. Thank you for listening to the Conquering Chronic Illness Show. I bless you to know that you are more than a conqueror. And if you'd like to get around other women who are on a journey to developing that identity for themselves, that identity of conqueror, then you're invited to join me in my totally free Facebook group called the Conqueror Community. It's a place where you can connect with like-minded conquerors, women who are on a journey of conquering all the things that are threatening to stand in the way of the abundant life Jesus promised them. When you gather in a community of women who are encouraging and uplifting and supportive and full of hope and their own testimonies of conquering, then it fuels your faith to keep going on your own journey. So I hope that I'll see you there.